OK, I really love this one. A teacher in the public system, Was Tremblay, is writing teen porn books. You've probably read about this. So we find out then he's in charge of the committee that deals with teachers who do things like, well, write books of pornography. Now, he's resigned, he had to. But there's much more to the story, and we'll find out. Richard Klagsbrun is a Canadian social media commentator and writer. You don't write soft core pornography books, though, do you?
Well, I have the good sense not to do it under my own name.
This is what I find extraordinary. OK, there's always a bad apple, you know, some fruits can be bad and all that, you know, and that sort of thing. And he writes these teenage pornography books, one person. But how many people knew about him? His friends must have known, his colleagues must have known. He's given this position in charge of the discipline committee. And how many more like him are still there?
It's hard to say, but well, here I want to actually read a very brief, abridged excerpt from.
What's the title of the book?
The title of the book is "The Sex Teens."
The Sex Teens.
The
yes.
Sex Teens.
Yes, yes,
and the Fake Goddess.
The muse is falling on the sex teens and the fake goddess. Yes, enlighten me, darling.
Well, the title is just a hint of what you'll get.
Right. Well, play some.
This is again is. I think
well, there he is. He's on the screen now. There. Oh, what a lovely-looking fella he is. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. These are his words.
These are his words. It is abridged for brevity's sake. Lila walks nearby, slightly waggling her bum. Steve, apparently stunned, finds his gaze quickly comes to rest on the firm and generous feminine breast that proudly adorns Lila.
Hello.
Totally forgetting she is his young childhood friend and discovering for the first time the titillating teen within her.
Titillating teen.
Titillating teen. A little alliteration.
Yes.
He only comes back to reality when the bell brusquely rings, signaling they have to go to the gym for Mr. Dick. Who is
Is that his name? Is that the principal?
He's
Mr. Dick.
Mr. Dick, who is in charge of discipline.
Oh, okay.
Wait, no. Mr. Dick's first name is, you might guess, is Harry.
This guy should have lost his job for being illiterate, apart from anything else.
So
Mr. Harry Dick.
Mr. Harry Dick, who is described, incidentally, as having a shiny bald head. It's so smooth and sexy. And who could argue with that? But
it is sexy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest offense.
So apart from being a pervert, he also can barely write English.
Well, I wouldn't go so. I don't know if he actually is a pervert in his real life. I doubt it.
I didn't say a pervert in his real life, but he's writing books of pornography, and they're not criticizing desires, they're actually affirming them. They're eroticizing them.
Well, I think the biggest offense here isn't against decency as it is against literature, but it's horrible stuff.
The book, apart from being fatuous, though, it is quite sinister in that there are teachers having threesomes with students, and there's a vice principal, there's a cover-up of a sexual offence. Now, again, it's badly written, I mean, it's garbage, but this man, I want to emphasise, was in charge of the committee of discipline that dealt with teachers.
Much like his alter ego in the book.
I mean, Mr. Dick. Harry Dick, yeah.
Mr. Harry Dick. It's a shocking thing that this is happening, but the worst part of it is, when I was a kid, we were exposed to sex in literature, but it wasn't literature directed at children. No. It was, I read 1984 when I was the age that these people are, that this book's directed to. 1984 has sexual content, but it's not sexual content really kind of titillate children. It's there.
Right. And it's written by George Orwell, who is a superb writer, as opposed to this twit here.
But the weird thing about all of this, and there's a very strange perspective I have on this. This, I think, is a feel-good story. Not the sex teens, the whole notion of this being addressed. Because what's happened is that the Toronto Star did a very good investigation. This actually is an outgrowth of another investigation they had into the lax way that some teachers who are engaging in egregiously bad behavior in schools have been disciplined. And so the head of the discipline committee, Mr. Tremblay, is also they found this out about him, that he's also doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, it's seldom that I do praise the Toronto Star, but it was a good piece. But this is very significant because there were complaints that teachers were not being disciplined properly. It seemed impossible they could ever lose their job or be chastised, whatever they did. Then we find out the man who was judging them, with perhaps his wife, the co-writer, producing books of cheap pornography to be read by kids to what, arouse them? I mean, who would read books like this? Men who were aroused by teenage girls, or teenagers who just
I frankly don't know who would read books like this. I even as a teenager, I couldn't imagine reading something this awful. But the interesting thing is that, again, he used his own name, so clearly he didn't think there was anything wrong with it.
Of course, that's the point. He didn't think. He's part of a culture of educational politics where they assume this is okay. And I am convinced that his friends and colleagues knew he'd written it, and they thought it was all jolly good fun. What does it matter if a child and a teacher have a relationship? It doesn't matter.
Well, sure, it reflects an attitude that's going on in the educational system right now, and that's actually why I say this is a feel-good story in terms of the media, because what's happened is here's this thing that's going on that's terrible. It's being exposed. It's being addressed with. Mr. Tremblay's being forced to resign. It's all good. Everything's fine now.
Well, he's still a teacher. He's been forced to resign from being in charge of that committee. He's still a player in educational politics. Remember, teachers' unions, we just had the Ontario election, they were campaigning against the Conservatives. They always try to influence elections. We're about to have a sex education curriculum introduced, as we have in Burnaby, BC, that is teaching children who still believe in Santa the details of anal sex and masturbation. And here is a man in a very influential position, and we understand what he thinks is acceptable.
Well, it's again shocking, but it's part of a pattern. It's part of a system that's being really insinuated into the educational system, and it stems out of places like the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. And this is part of just a broader thing. They're doing things that, I mean, I find, as shocking as I find this, I find other things that never get talked about shocking. The way that they're trying to insinuate or integrate what they call social justice. Now, remember, these are people that worship Che Guevara, mass murderers. So their notion of social justice may be different than yours and mine. And they're trying to encourage anti-Americanism just in the curriculum. And it's in math now that they're trying to encourage that too. Let me just give you a little bit of
Che Guevara was a middle-class dental student who became physically and sexually aroused when he saw people being killed.
Yes.
And people wear him on their T-shirt.
Yeah. And so, well, let me just tell you something that's going on. This is an OISE designed course. And here's something. For grade 8 students, this is math now, and they were actually trying to inject social justice. Okay, when the 2004 U.S. military budget is plotted along with earlier data on money spent on recreational activities and need for social issues, what can now be inferred from the graph? And based on this new graph, students get to build an argument, or get students to build an argument in tables groups to show that there's more than enough money spent on the U.S. military to solve 5 global issues.
This is when we read this in the Arab world, and how many Jews are dead when you kill 3 Jews and 5 Jews are in the room. I mean, it's not quite as pernicious, but it's pretty crass.
It is, because what's happening is they don't give you any context. They don't know why the U.S. has a large military budget. People like Bill Graham have explained, former Jean Chrétien's former defense minister, have explained that one of the reasons Canada has the social programs it does is because we don't have to spend money on military because they do.
By the way, what's that book that you put on the floor down there?
That is...
let me have a look. No, let me have a look.
Yellow Dog by Martin Amis.
Yes, of course it is. Little did I know when she walked into the room that... We'll end it there. Thank you very much for your time.
It was my pleasure.